This podcast is brought to you by the School of Advanced Study, University of London.
We're going to move on to a couple of talks which are looking at specific digital resources which you might find useful for your research. My colleague Simon Baker has been an editor on the Bibliography of British and Irish History since 2004 at the Institute of Historical Research. And he joined the IHR from the British Film Institute and had previously also worked at the Royal Commission on Historical Monuments of England. So has been in at the early stages of digitisation of three institutions, really. And Simon's going to talk a bit about the bibliography.
Thank you very much, Jane. The bibliography began in 1909 and covers British and Irish history from 43 AD to the present, as well as Imperial and Commonwealth history and American colonial history. Bibliography includes books and journals. Over 750 journals are actually checked, and chapters within collective volumes. Around 650 of these are done per year. As you can see, it's updated 3 times per year with around 12,000 new entries, and as of January 2015 there are over 550,000 records, and there's an update due which is going to add nearly 4,508 February. We have online tutorials for users covering topics such as searching, exporting and access to full text, and links to other resources as well. There's a basic search and an advanced search. As in most bibliographies, users can search by author, title, journal, free text term, subject term, search using a thesaurus, person as a subject, and by geographical area. Again, this is by using a thesaurus. There's also the added advantage for historians of being able to use period-covered search. And this is what the advanced search screen looks like. So you can see the author, the title, the subject search, and the place search there. We had some visitors this morning who came and asked us questions, and we managed to cover agricultural labour in the 18th century, shipbuilding, and Tudor heraldry, all of which we could actually do quite easily now. I've chosen this one, which is cultural relations and film. The place is France, and as you can see, we get 29 results. And click on that. There's the list of the results. The new there shows that's a new one. This is actually from 2013, so we are a little out of date with this screenshot, but it does indicate if there's anything new. And if we look at one record, this is a typical record. So at the top you'll get all the bibliographical information, who's the author, where it's from, whether it's a journal or a book, and at the bottom the classification details, so you can quite clearly see cultural relations and film there. And this is about the Bridge of the River Kwai. So you also get Burma and resistance and rebellion, World War II as expected, David Lean, who was the director of the film, and Pierre Boulle, who actually was a Frenchman and actually wrote The Bridge on the River Kwai. So from this I'd like to highlight two resources that we link to. One, the Oxford Dictionary of National Biography, and the National Register of Archives. So as you see, they're highlighted there. So if we click on ODNB, we're taken straight to the ODNB entry for Sir David Lean. And as you can see, where there is a link back to other online resources for the bibliography. If we clicked on the NRA entry, which is a register of manuscripts material relating to British history for archives held in the UK, which is now called Discovery, which is part of the TNA, we get the entry for the National Archive entry there. We also link to full text, so this is the article again, and we can click on that view full text and it takes you to the text of the article. If this was in green, the access options there was in green, you'd have free access to it. It's in blue, so it means you'd either have to rent it overnight or buy it, or try and get through an interlibrary loan. So returning back, there. We also link to all of these other resources, and British History Online, which Sarah will talk about, Reviews on History, which Danny in the corner actually does for the IHR, all the JSTOR's Project Muse and Genta. The ones I'd like to highlight are the Find a Copy and this other little squiggly one up here. They will actually find the copy at your repository. So if you're at the Senate House Library, it will actually search the Senate House Library to see if the copy of the article or the book is there. The little squiggly thing usually says find it at, and your name, so it's either at Oxford, at UCL, or whatever. There's variations on the theme there, but you will see that, find a copy quite often. The other two things I'd like to highlight for as a valuable aid to students and indeed all users are email alerts and exporting references. So email alerts, it allows users to set up an email alert for new material on specific topics. The email alert takes less than a couple of minutes to set up, and you can use any number of search criteria. So it's really a quick and effective way of keeping informed of developments in your research area. So I have set up 2 email alerts, one for intelligence for the period 1880 to 1945, and one for film, which is films or cinema. So whenever there is an update 3 times a year, you will get this email telling you there are updates. And by simply clicking on the Intelligence 1880 or the film section, it'll take you straight to all the new records that are available for your research area. So if you're starting off now, it's a really, really useful thing to actually set up an email alert. You can do a broad one, a very specific one, whatever, but it's a really quick and easy way of keeping abreast of any developments in your area. The other one I'd like to discuss is exporting references. So has anyone heard of RefWorks, EndNote, Zotero? Yeah, you know you have. Yeah, so you're all okay with those. Okay. So this is the list of references to the manufacturer and entrepreneur Matthew Bolton. And you see the little export, they're highlighted. So you can download to any one of those formats. EndNote, Microsoft Office does this as well, and there are online tutorials to do this to make life easier for you. RefWorks as well. But I will use actually Zotero because that's the one I use rather than the other ones, and I'm slightly happier in demonstrating it. So you can download Zotero, which is free, to your computer, and it appears a little Z either at the very bottom or the very top of your screen. And wherever you get a URL here, you can see it's highlighted that folder. And it's simply a case of going into Zotero, which will open at the bottom of the screen. You simply create a new folder. Sorry, wrong way. Matthew Bolton. You click on that folder up there, and it deposits all of those references into a window, which you can select just one or two, or all of them. I've selected all of them, and you simply press OK, and it populates your folder with all of that bibliographical information. So you've got the title, you've got the fixed capital one there, and all the bibliographical data there. Now the neat thing about all these reference managers is they help you create a bibliography. And when I had to do my bibliography, you had to write it all by hand and go to the library. But now all you do is you select your folder, create a bibliography, choose which style you want to use, press OK, and it creates a bibliography. It's just simply cut and paste job. You have to tweak it sometimes because it doesn't quite import it as you'd like it to, but that is the easy way of doing it. The other advantage, which I really like, is when you actually come in to type something up. So you create your Matthew Bolton essay, you start typing. When you download Zotero or Microsoft or any of these, you get an add-on, and it's simply a case of clicking Insert Citation, asks you what, again, format you'd like to use, picks your folder for Matthew Bolton, you simply put your pagination in, and it creates the footnote at the bottom for you. Type a bit more, create another footnote, add your pagination, and there it is again. So it makes life incredibly easy for you, as Paul knows. And these are the other digital resources that IHR Digital does, and I will pass you on to my colleague, Sarah.
Sarah Milligan, who joined the IHR as Publishing Manager for British History Online last year, and she's really overseen the relaunch of British History Online, which has been a very well established service for more than 10 years, and we had a big relaunch in the last couple of months. Sarah's been involved in a lot of fantastic projects, including the Map of Early Modern London, Internet Shakespeare Editions and Victorian Poetry Network as a research assistant and editorial work, so she's very experienced in the benefits of these types of projects. And Sarah's just going to talk us through some of the things that you can do with the new British History Online.
Thanks, Jane. So, welcome to British History Online, or BHO, as we like to call it. If you've used BHO before, welcome to our newly relaunched site. If you haven't, this website may just change the way you do research, or I don't want to say your life, but I do get some pretty enthusiastic emails. So yeah, we just rebuilt the site and basically started over from the ground up. Like Jane mentioned, British History Online was first launched in 2003, and the world of digital history has changed dramatically since then. So you are seeing the brand new site. BHO is a digital library of primary and secondary sources for British history. So I think it'll be very useful to most of you here. Most of our texts are volumes that appear in print and have been transcribed by double rekeying, which means that two typists are inputting the text independently to an accuracy level of 99.995%. So they're very accurate transcriptions. We also have some born digital texts, which are documents or data sets that originate in the digital form and that have been prepared by a team of scholars. We currently have over 1,200 publications that are available and searchable online. To get an idea of what that means, you can take a look at our catalog, which will show you everything we have in our at a glance. All right. Most of our materials you can see here are in series, but we do have some standalone volumes, such as A Survey of London by John Still. Some other highlights that you might be interested in. We have the Journal of Board of Trade and Plantations. We have Calendar of Close Rolls, Calendar of State Papers, Foreign and Domestic. We have the House of Commons journals and the House of Lords journals, which are very highly used. We have Letters and Papers of Henry VIII, RCHME volumes. Most of the Survey of London, sorry, I'm scrolling kind of fast, but just to give you a quick overview. Most of the Survey of London volumes, and then also the Victoria County History volumes. So if that list is a bit too long for you, you can narrow down and look at specific things based on source type, if you want to only look at primary sources, or if you want to only look at materials about London, or if you'd like to look by place at administrative and legal materials, or by period if you only want to look at materials from the 14th century, say. So if we drop into a volume, or into a series and then into a volume, so this is what a series looks like, and then we can choose a volume, and you're brought to our table of contents, and then we can choose a section. So this gives you an idea of what the transcribed material might look like. It's pretty easy to search and pretty easy to look at. For premium content, we have page scans available for almost all of our premium content material. And those are accessible if you have an institutional subscription, or if your institution subscribes, or if you have a gold level subscription. So I can give you a quick look at our page scans. These were just introduced with our new relaunch. And then if go back to the publication level, you can also search within a publication. So if looking up 14th century sheriffs is your thing, and to each his own, you can do that pretty easily. Going back to the catalog, we also have some really wonderful maps here. We have the 19th century Epoch 1 Ordnance Survey maps, both the large scale and the smaller scale. And we have 5 maps of pre-18th century London. And this interface is also new with our new site. So I can give you an idea of what that looks like. I can figure out this So this is the Aegis map of London from the 16th century, and you can zoom in to a pretty incredible level of detail. You can manipulate the map quite easily. Go over here and look at some donkeys in the river. And scroll up and see some people doing laundry. So those are our maps. Now I can show you our new search. Sorry, I don't have a fancy PowerPoint. I'm just giving you guys a demonstration, but I think it's pretty cool. Okay, so if you'd like to do a specific search on BHO, you can do so with our keyword search, a title search, or a combination of the two. So if we want to search forest, you can do a keyword search of all of our 1,200 plus publications. If that's a bit too much for you, then you might want to narrow it down using our facets on the side. So you can choose to look at north, materials that have been tagged at the volume level as being related to the north of England or Scotland. Or if you're not interested in Scotland, you can look at north and 17th century or 16th century and narrow your results that way. Clearing our search. If you want to do a title search, Survey of London is a pretty, oops, sorry. Nope. You can see this will give you results at a volume level. And then if you combine it with a keyword search, you get results at a smaller section level. So let's look at Rosebery combined with Survey of London. And now we're getting materials that have Survey of London in the title and Rosebery in the text. We can go into another section, and you can see there's a table of contents for that particular section that you're in. And then this gives you an idea of some of the great pictures, some of the images that we have on our site as well, especially in our Survey of London volumes, including a historic Banksy. So that's the search. We have some helpful using BHO guidelines that just to give you ideas about how to do your search and your browsing. How to cite BHO, how to use the images. We have subject guides, which have been written by experts in that subject, and we're continuing to add to those as we go forward. And we also have some external resources for where we think that users might want to go next after beyond BHO. So like I mentioned earlier, or maybe I didn't, most of our texts are freely available. We have about 20% of our site is premium content, and that can be, we have both individual and institutional subscriptions. Hopefully your institutions all subscribe. University of London does, so you can see all the premium content through logging in to your University of London if you are from there. And if your university doesn't subscribe, then I would really encourage you to go talk to your librarians and tell them that this is something that you think would be useful to you. And I'm not just saying that because we want the subscriptions, but because you should feel empowered to tell your librarian what resources are useful to you in your research. So that's BHO in a nutshell. It's a project that's been around for over 12 years now, and we're constantly working to make it better and to respond to research questions that users such as yourselves are asking. So please feel free to take a bookmark. Our URL is there, and the bookmark has the email, so if you have questions that you want to ask me about using BHO and about any of our materials, please feel free to be in touch. Thanks.
I think Sarah may not have had a fancy PowerPoint, but she did do live typing, which is always much more impressive, I think.
On a strange keyboard, no less.
Having heard about a couple of specific projects, we're going to move back onto that big picture again. My colleague Jonathan Blaney, who joined the IHR in 2007, actually working on British History Online, and has stayed on and now works across a range of different projects. And before he came to us, he's worked on the Oxford Dictionary of National Biography, the Oxford Digital Library, and Early English Books Online Text Creation Partnership. So it's really kind of steeped in that editorial work. And Jonathan's been much engaged with big data recently because of a number of projects that we have at the IHR, and he's going to talk about some of that.
Yep, I'm going to touch on two of our big data projects, but really my main aim today is to try to convince you that you can engage in a practical way with big data. And I want to try and quash two possible misconceptions about big data. One is that you need a fancy setup to be able to use it. I do my big data work at home on a laptop I bought 5 years ago for £50 second hand, so it's about as bottom of the range as you can get, and it's absolutely fine. And the other possible misconception is that you need to be a computer scientist or some kind of hardened geek to be able to do it. It's not like that at all. I think it's more like learning to play the guitar. You probably know that if you learn 3 or 4 chords on the guitar, you can play loads of songs. It doesn't make you an expert, but you can do all kinds of interesting things. That isn't to say that you can't go on and learn many more techniques and eventually become a virtuoso. And I'm not decrying the expertise of data scientists and technologists generally, but what I'm saying is the learning curve is very much a ramp. You can start straight away. And I want to demonstrate today one very small, simple tool that you can do all kinds of interesting things with. And James alluded to it really earlier, which is grep. It's a command line tool. Every computer has a command line, whether you found yours or not. And it's a way to directly talk to the computer and tell it what to do, which is an incredibly powerful interface if you just know the right commands, and they're usually very simple. So I'm going to give you a couple of practical examples. On the way you just simply type on the command line grep what you're looking for, whatever that string is, and then the file you want grep to look in, and it will return all the lines that match that pattern. What's the point of that? Well, for example, James also mentioned the web archive at the British Library, which is a massive data set. And we're working with the British Library and the Oxford Internet Institute on a project to look at what's inside that huge data set of 60 or so terabytes of web archive for the UK. One thing you can download for free from the site is what they call, I think it's called a linked data graph, which is a list of all the links in the web archive from one website to another, which is actually, if you think about it, over the period of the last 20 years, tons and tons of links. So every time the BBC links to Amazon or Amazon UK links to somewhere else, it will be listed in this list. So this file, if you download it, is 200 gigabytes worth of data. That's quite a lot of stuff. You can't open it in any editor, but grep will have no problem at all in looking through it for you. So that's a perfect example of where the command line is where you need to go with big data. I'm going to show you a slightly more focused example with another of our projects. We're working with the Netherlands and Canada, looking at the language of parliamentary debate in the 3 legislatures of those countries with the UK. So in the UK, of course, we're looking at Hansard. All of Hansard is available online for free, and we're enhancing that data and analysing it for the way people speak and various other things. So a small practical issue I had last week was that the Hansard files are full of things like this. The P's in angle brackets are paragraphs. They come before someone speaks, so they tell you at what time of day someone speaks in Hansard. And I had the files of Hansard from 1935 to 2014, and I wanted to get out all the lists of when everybody spoke from those files. And I had, I think it was 12,086 files to look through. So grep is the way to go. I simply could type grep, my pattern, which is PM, they all end in PM or AM, the end of the paragraph, and then because I had all the files in one folder, they all end in XML, just type star.xml, and grep will print out for me. It will go through laboriously, chugging away at those 12,000 files, and print off every single line I'm interested in, which is fantastically powerful, but it prints it to the by default to the screen. What I want is a file that's got my PMs in it, so I simply type a forward angle bracket and the name of my new file. Grep creates it, and you can now see the power of grep, because going from 12,086 files down to 1 is an incredibly convenient thing to be able to do with typing, 25 characters. And most powerful of all is if you put a -e after grep, which allows you to search for patterns, so pattern matching, syntax. I won't go into all the details today, but let me give you one simple example. Just to remind you there, before PM we've got 6 characters, including the dot and the space, in that paragraph. So with grep E, a dot means any character at all. So all I have to type is 6 dots, then PM, closing the paragraph, and search away again. The capital O means don't give me the whole line, just give me that the 6 characters and then the last bit. So give me a very short string, and I can send it to a file, and it will look like that, except I found 150,000 of these with my grep. So you can see it's very powerful indeed. What we're going to do with that information? Well, one of the things we've marked up for the first time in this project is the gender of speakers. So now, with the time information and the speaker information, we can look at issues like, do women speak as late as men do in Parliament? And it's been long been a criticism of parliamentary hours that they're unsocial and they militate against women speaking. So we can now actually look and see whether women do speak later than men or not. And that would be one piece of evidence in that debate. We can also look at the way people speak as it gets later in the evening. Do people get more quarrelsome? Do they get tired and fall asleep and get very much quiescent? We don't know. So we can now look at those using that timestamp information. Now I can understand that you may not be interested in 19th and 20th century parliamentary history, but I hope you can see from that short demo that grep is useful for anything that involves text and files. You can use it for absolutely anything. And once you get into it, you'll use it all the time, because it's something, once you know this tool, it's an obvious go-to for all kinds of searches. So I'm thinking of it as like a gateway drug. If you start using grep, I hope that you can then realise the simplicity of these tools. There's lots more like it that you can use from the command line. And I think James's resource he linked to earlier would help you out with some other examples. So how can you get it? If you run Linux as your operating system, you already have it, and you probably already know everything I've just said. If you don't, and you've got an old laptop, an old a desktop kicking around the house, Linux runs particularly well on old hardware, so you might feel slightly adventurous and load Linux onto that old machine. It's completely free, and you'll find it's very, very powerful for any kind of text processing work. If you have a Mac, you do have grep already, that's the good news. On the Mac, the command line is called terminal. It's very hidden away for some reason, so the best way to find it is to search Spotlight for terminal, and you'll get it, and you can start grepping straight away. If you run Windows, you don't have grep. It has a really poor implementation of the same thing, which is called FindString, which is, give it a try, but I don't recommend it. But you can easily download grep. It's free. There are many ways of downloading it. The one I use at work, where I'm obliged to use Windows, is something called Git GUI. If you can get it from that address. I don't really use Git at all, which is a version control system, but it comes with what's called Git Bash, and so you can simply right-click in any folder in Windows Explorer, and it will say Open Git Bash here, and that's what I've just done to get that screenshot. And then you can start grepping away. It's quite a powerful bash that you get. Bash is a form of the command line. So that's my kind of sales pitch for grep. I hope at least a few of you will go away and try it. You can't do any damage because you're not changing any files. You're just looking at them and searching them. So you can't delete anything with grep. It's a pretty safe way to get into using the command line. And I'm sure resources like James, there's many of them on the internet, and you can easily find the answers to any questions about using grep you may have. So please go and give it a try, and good luck.